Hi everyone, it's me, Darlene. I am here with what I think is a kind of interesting quilt block. We are going to be taking 5 squares and turning them into 5 different quilt blocks, all in one swoop. We're going to be doing some snowballing, but we're not going to waste the fabric. That's how these other blocks come about. So let's just get started. Oh, and I practiced this one with construction paper first. I'll link to a video down below showing you how I do that. I don't do it all the time, but I really wanted to know if my sizes were right, so I did this. This is the quilt block we will be making. And then our little scrappy pieces that are left are going to be some half square triangles. These half square triangles could be incorporated in whatever quilt project you're making. If you're going to be using, this in a quilt, you could use these also, or you can just save them for other projects. Let's get started. Super simple. This is what I picked for sizes. 1 8-inch square, and I went with an all-over kind of biggish print. And then for my first snowball, which is going to be this pink line, like that, I went with just a soft kind of lavender color. And then for my second snowball, which is this guy, I just picked, something like that with a little print. Let's start with our 2 4-inch squares. Did I say that? These are 4-inch squares. 8-inch, you need 1. 4-inch, you need 2 matching. Well, they wouldn't have to be matching. You could do scrappy. And then 2 3-inch squares. And again, I went matchy. I'm going to take my 2 4-inch squares and I'm going to do a diagonal line. Now, we will be sewing on that line, so we're not going to be cutting that line off. I'm still going to use a pen. Just don't use like a Sharpie or something. I just don't happen to have one of those disappearing ink pens or whatever. You could also, if you don't want to draw a line, you could just fold it and press, and you'd have the pressed line. You can also use chalk. Now we're going to snowball. So we're taking our 8-inch square, and obviously you don't want it this way. We're going to put it in one corner. But see, our line is going this way. We don't want that. We want the line to go this way, because we're going to sew on it, like that. So right sides together, and I'm going to just sew right on that line. Obviously, if I were making a quilt, I would have sent 2 more through, 2 more, 2 more, 2 more. That's the way I like to do things. Now, this is what we have. I'm using black thread. Now I'm going to go and sew another line here, 1/4 of an inch away from this line, just using my foot as a guide. So I see my line, I'm going to sew to the right of that line. And this is what's going to give us our first little half square triangle. So now I'm going to cut between the 2 stitched lines. See that? This first line is on the line that I drew, and then this other one is just to the right of that. And now we're cutting between those 2 stitched lines. Now here, when we fold this back and press it, we're going to have our first snowballed corner. And then here, we're going to have a nice little half square triangle. Let's do the same on the opposite corner. I'm going to sew on my line, and then I'm going to sew to the right of that line. Now I will cut between the sewn lines. And let me go press this. Now we're going to do snowball number 2. So once again, diagonal lines on your 3-inch squares. And I'm going to do that on the corners that we already snowballed. And again, just putting my line in this direction. And this is what's going to create our little stripe. I'm going to sew right on the line, and then I'm going to sew to the right of that line. Just like we did before. Let me do the other side. Same thing, I'm going to cut between the sewn lines. Let me press everything open and we are done. You guys, this is quite exciting for me. This turned out way better than I expected. It looks much nicer than construction paper. Look at this nice block. I really love it. And I have so many ideas for this. I think putting a border around this block in the stripe color would be really cool because it would frame this corner. It would make like a triangle of purple or whatever you're using. I just think that would be really, really nice. I might do it in another video. I still want to try to think about what I want to do with these, but I'm going to tell you about the little half square triangles now. First of all, oh yes, and I trimmed this to about 7 3/4 because, you know, we're human. It's not always perfect, and I just trimmed it down a little bit, you know? So, cool beans with that. Okay, these adorable half square triangles. We end up with the 2 bigger ones and the 2 little ones. I would suggest that if you're putting these aside for just some future project, don't trim them yet because they are always going to get thready if they're in storage. So you could just, you know, put them in a box or whatever and just leave them until later. If you're planning on, you know, using it in the quilt that you use the big blocks, then you can go ahead and trim. Now these we started out with 4-inch squares, the purple. It came out to about a 3.5, but again a little bit crooked. I trimmed these to 3 inches. Love them. These, they came out to about 2.5, and I trimmed them to 2. And the best thing about this is I sell gazillions of 2-inch squares. You can put them together with these, like you can do 2 half square triangles and then 2 just, you know, regular 2-inch squares. So much you can do with this. So I really liked the sizes that, you know, how they turned out. Now, I do sell 8-inch squares, so you're good with that. The purple, we started with 4-inch squares. I don't sell 4-inch squares, but I sell bricks, which are 4 by 8. Cut those in half, and you've got 2 4-inch squares. And then these were 3-inch squares. I sell 3.5-inch squares. You could always just trim them down to 3 if you wanted, or you could try 3.5 and see how that works. But then this little final piece would be bigger, or you could still trim it down to 2 inches if you want. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. So this is the block I was aiming for, but I did not want to waste any fabric, and we certainly didn't waste any. I would like to think about this and come back with a way that you could turn these 4 scrappy pieces into another block the same size as this, so you could alternate in your quilt. You could have some blocks like this and some blocks that use this, and it would all work together. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, I'll be showing you some close-ups, so stick around and watch that. Thank you so much. Bye.